Hello and thanks for joining me here today. My name's Jason Lapp, owner and operator of National Property Inspections. If you're in need of a property inspection, give me a call at 513-218-6532. Today I'm performing an inspection on a property in a suburb of Cincinnati. For time's sake, I went ahead and removed the cover panel. First thing that we want to do is we want to match the main disconnect, the breaker here, with the size of the panel. In this case, the panel is a 200 amp panel, the breaker is a 200 amp disconnect, so it's sized properly. You never want to have the breaker rating higher than what the panel is rated for. Next we're going to look at the condition of the electrical wires, the circuits going to the breakers. We want to look and see if there's any discoloration or and any insulation that's melted, which if you look on both sides, there's nothing like that present, which is a good sign. That means that there are no loose electrical connections. We also want to check and make sure that the panel is grounded and bonded, which you can see the two ground wires there, and you can't see it, but there's a bonding screw and a strap back there which bonds the panel to the electric. And what that does is if there was a wire that came loose and was to touch the panel, it grounds the panel so that there is no risk of electrocution or shock. Then we want to check and make sure that the circuit running to the breaker is correctly sized, which if you see here are 15 amps. Those are for your bedrooms. And you can see bedrooms, dining room, living room. They've got 14 gauge copper wire, which is correct. If we go over onto this side, 20 amp breakers. Breakers are for your bathrooms and your kitchen. And you can see that they have 12 gauge copper wire, which is correct. Then you have your 30 amp breaker, which is for your water heater. And that is a 10 gauge wire, which you can see here. And it goes up from there. 40 amp breakers are for stoves most of the time, and those get a 8 gauge wire. Then you have your 60 amp breakers. These are very typical for electric furnaces, and those are 6 gauge wires, as you can see. The 50 amp breakers for a hot tub. Everything's correctly wired, correctly sized. What we also want to look for on the wires is that there isn't a lot of tension on the wires. You can see these nice bends. That means that there's plenty of slack, that the wires, there's no tension on the wires. We also want to look for discoloration on the lugs, which we don't see any. Discoloration means that there's a loose wire or a hot spot, which can damage the whole panel. So everything in the panel is correctly sized, properly grounded. Also important to remember too that your breakers need to be properly labeled as well, so that if there is an emergency and you need to shut off that particular breaker, you know which one you're going to. And so with that in mind, thanks for joining me here today. And just remember, whether your house is big or small, NPI will inspect them all. My number is 513-218-6532. Thank you.